It all starts with a dangerous queen named Himiko. Legend had it she possessed the power of dark magic. All she had to do was touch someone and they'd drop dead on the spot. Her power was so terrifying that wherever she went, death and destruction followed. Eventually, even her own generals were scared of her. They figured that if Himiko wasn't stopped, the entire world would be finished. So they teamed up, captured her, and dumped her on a remote island, somewhere she could never come back from. Years later, a man named Lord Richard Croft catches wind of Himiko. He comes across an old map that pinpoints the location of that mysterious island. Richard believes Himiko's secret is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in the world, so he decides to go find it. But that meant leaving his young daughter Lara behind. Even so, he doesn't stop and sets off on that dangerous mission. Now, a few years later, Lara has grown up. She's in the middle of a sparring session in a mixed martial arts gym. It's pretty clear she knows how to fight and hold her own. After the session, Lara does bike courier work to make ends meet. One day, she swings by her local hangout, where she hears about a race called Fox Hunt. In this game, one biker plays the fox, and everyone else chases them down. The fox's bike has a bucket of paint attached to the back, dripping a trail along the route. If the others catch the fox before the paint runs out, they win. But if the fox gets away, the prize money goes to them. Lara jumps at the chance to be the fox. On race day, she's flying through the city streets on her bike. As she's hauling, she hits a quiet street and spots a guy in a suit who suddenly reminds her of her dad. She loses focus for a split second, and her bike slams straight into a cop car. After that, Lara gets hauled off to the police station. That's where Anna Miller, her father Richard's business partner, shows up and bails her out. Anna tells Lara she doesn't need to be out there risking her life in dangerous races because her father's estate already belongs to her. But Lara flat out refuses. She wants nothing to do with her father's money. Richard had been missing for a full 7 years, so Anna pressures Lara to sign papers declaring her father legally dead. If she doesn't, Richard's entire estate will be sold off. That night, Lara starts thinking about her dad. She remembers the moment Richard gave her a jade necklace before he left. It had belonged to her mother, so it meant everything to her. The next day, Lara heads to the Croft Holdings building to sign the papers declaring her father dead. But before she can sign, the lawyer hands her a Japanese puzzle of Richard's called a karakuri. Lara takes it in her hands and quickly figures it out. Inside the puzzle, she finds a hidden note and a key. The note has the first clue to her father's last known location. Lara heads back to Croft Manor and makes her way to her father's grave because that was his last known location. She presses the letter R for Richard on the headstone. That's when she spots a hidden keyhole. She slips in the key from the karakuri puzzle. Suddenly, the other side of the grave swings open, revealing Richard's secret office. Inside, she finds fake passports and an old video camera. When she hits play, she sees a recorded message from her father. In the video, Richard explains that after his wife's death, he became obsessed with finding a way to reach the afterlife to bring her back. That search is what led him to Himiko's secret. He then tells Lara to burn all his research tied to the Himiko project, because if it falls into the wrong hands, the world could be over. Lara finds a box labeled Himiko, but instead of destroying it, she starts going through everything inside. That's when she learns the full story of Himiko and the lost island of Yamatai. She figures out that her father was heading to Yamatai. She even finds the name of the ship captain who is supposed to take Richard there. Since Lara still hasn't signed the papers declaring her father legally dead, she can't touch the inheritance money. To fund her trip, she pawns her mother's necklace at a shop. A few days later, Lara lands in Hong Kong to track down that ship captain. Some guys offer to help her out, but the second they get the chance, they grab her bag and bolt. Lara takes off after them, hopping across boats to chase them down. She finally corners the guy who has her bag and forces him to hand it over. But after he gives it back, he pulls out a knife and tries to scare her. Lara grabs a nearby hook, swings to the other side, and slips away. Eventually, Lara finds the ship called the Endurance, but those same guys surround her again. Suddenly, the ship's captain, Lu Ren, fires a warning shot and they scatter. He then tells Lara to get lost too. But the guy's so drunk he passes out and hits the floor. Lara dumps a shower's worth of water on him to wake him up. The second he comes to, she starts firing questions about her father. Lara shows him the message from her father's office, but Lu Ren tells her that his father had the same name, Lu Ren, so Richard probably contacted his dad, not him. He then shares that his own father went missing after that same trip. Hearing that, Lara connects the dots. Both their fathers were on the same journey. She tells Lu Ren they were heading to an island called Yamatai. Lara shows him Richard's journal, which has some strange codes written in it. Lara thinks they might be coordinates, but Lu Ren notices they actually look like clock hands. Once they crack that, Lara decodes the entries and they finally pin down the location of Yamatai. But Lu Ren warns her, that island sits right in the middle of the deadly Devil's Sea. Going there is basically asking to die. He says he doesn't care anymore what happened to his father, but then his eyes land on an old childhood photo of him and his dad. Something in him shifts. Lara offers him money to take her to Yamatai, and he agrees. On the way to Yamatai, Lara reads through Richard's journal and finds an ancient puzzle among his things. She learns that Himiko is sealed behind a seriously complex door. The journal says the tomb is full of deadly obstacles, and only after getting past all of them can someone reach Himiko's resting place. One night, Lara wakes up to find the ship trapped in a brutal storm. She rushes up to the bridge, where Lu Ren is barely keeping the ship under control. Lara can see they're getting really close to Yamatai, but massive waves are tossing the ship around like nothing. Lu Ren tells her to evacuate immediately, but Lara runs back to her cabin to grab her father's journal. In the middle of the storm, the ship crashes into a huge rock. Lara jumps into the water, but the storm pulls her away from Lu Ren, and she loses him. After a brutal fight to stay afloat, Lara somehow drags herself to the island's shore. When she gets there, she can see that other people are already on the island, but out of nowhere, someone attacks her from behind, and everything goes dark. The next day, Lara wakes up inside a tent. That's where she meets Matthias Vogel. He tells her he has daughters back home just like her, but he can't go home until he finishes his work on the island. When Lara checks her bag, Vogel tells her that Richard's journal is now in his hands. He sarcastically thanks her for basically delivering exactly what he needed, right to his door. He then reveals that Richard had refused to cooperate with them, so he had him killed. Hearing that, Lara is completely shattered, because now she knows her father is really gone. When she steps outside the tent, she sees workers using explosives to blast through the entire mountain. Armed guards tie Lara's hands. That's when she spots Lu Ren, who's already been captured and is being forced to work. After that, Vogel announces that the camp is being moved to a new location. On the way there, Lu Ren fills Lara in, telling her that most of the workers are shipwrecked fishermen or smuggling victims who got stranded on the island by accident. Meanwhile, Vogel uses Richard's journal to finally locate the entrance to Himiko's tomb. Then, the workers, including Lara and Lu Ren, get put to work uncovering that door. While they're working, an old man suddenly collapses, but instead of letting him rest, a guard orders him straight back to work. Lara and Lu Ren try to help the old man, but Vogel doesn't think twice. He just shoots the worker on the spot. Right then, Lu Ren grabs a shovel and attacks the guard so Lara can make a run for it. The second she takes off, people are shooting at her from behind. Lara disappears into the jungle. Lu Ren tries to follow her, but Vogel shoots him in the shoulder. Running hard, Lara reaches a cliff. She climbs onto a fallen tree trunk and tries to get to the other side, but the gunfire throws off her balance and she plunges straight into the river below. Swept up in the current, Lara fights to pull herself out. Near a waterfall, she grabs onto the wing of a wrecked plane and hauls herself up. But the second her weight hits it, the wing starts to give. Lara sprints to the plane's fuselage, but the danger isn't over because the whole plane starts sliding downward. After a few moments, it wedges itself between two cliff faces. That's when Lara finds an old parachute. As she starts to fall, she yanks it open and tries to save herself. She crash lands back into the jungle, but on the way down, a small tree branch jabs right into her side. Crying out in pain, she pulls it out herself. That night, Lara is hiding in a cave. She hears a sound coming from inside, so she carefully slips out. Out of nowhere, Vogel's man Roth grabs her, but Lara immediately sinks her teeth into his hand hard. Roth throws her to the ground. When he pins her down, Lara grabs a nearby rock and smashes it against his head. Then she locks him in a chokehold. She flips him over and shoves his head into a water-filled hole, drowning him. Suddenly, Lara catches a shadow in the dark. She takes off after it. A moment later, she sees the figure climbing a cliff, and that's when it hits her. It's Richard. She scrambles up the rocks and reaches his camp. But Richard can't believe she's actually standing there. He keeps thinking she can't really be there. Lara keeps telling him over and over that she's real. Finally, Richard believes it, and with tears in his eyes, he asks why she came. When he sees her wound, he cleans it up and bandages it, then tells her to rest. He promises he's never leaving her again. The next day, the workers finally fully uncover the tomb's entrance. Vogel immediately radios his employers. On the other side, Lara wakes up to find Richard trimming his long beard. She helps him out. While he's getting cleaned up, Richard admits that leaving Lara behind was the hardest decision of his life. But Himiko's secret had such a hold on him that he could never get off the island. He then explains that Vogel works for an organization called Trinity, so no matter what, he has to stop Vogel from reaching Himiko. Richard is convinced Lara burned all his research, but Lara comes clean and tells him she didn't. Richard freaks out, but Lara points out that it's exactly that research that led her to him. Richard, stressed out, says Lara basically handed that journal straight to Vogel, but Lara figures it won't matter much now. Lara tells Richard they can use Vogel's satellite phone to get off the island. She reminds him that he's the one who taught her to never give up. But Richard says he was a different person back then. He's not who he used to be. Lara refuses to accept that. She picks up a bow and arrows and heads back to Vogel's camp alone. She sneaks into Vogel's tent, but moments later, Vogel walks in. So Lara ducks and hides. Vogel gets a message on his phone that his employer's transport has arrived near the island, but he still hasn't cracked the tomb's code. Meanwhile, Lara quietly slips out of the tent and catches Luren's eye. Then she takes out the guard watching the workers with an arrow and tells the others to grab weapons. Lara sees Vogel has stepped out of the tent. She tells Luren to get everyone else out of there, while she heads toward the tent herself. Somehow, Lara gets her hands on the satellite phone and makes a break for it, but then she spots Richard heading toward the tomb's entrance. Meanwhile, Vogel corners Richard and demands he open the tomb. He tells him that once it's open, he can finally go home to his family, but Richard stops him, telling him that if they open that tomb, his family won't survive either. When Vogel realizes Richard isn't going to budge, he orders a guard to take him out. But before the guard can pull the trigger, Lara drops him with an arrow. Then Lara aims her arrow straight at Vogel, but Vogel immediately grabs Richard at gunpoint. So he tells Lara to convince Richard to open the tomb. After thinking it through, Lara decides that after all these years, after finally getting her father back, she can't let him die. So she agrees to open the tomb herself. She thinks back to how she solved the ancient puzzle before, and uses the same logic to turn the wheels on the entrance into the right position. Suddenly, the entire door collapses into the ground, revealing a deep pit below. Then Lara, Richard, Vogel, and his crew head inside. The moment they step in, a strong rush of wind hits everyone. Richard panics, thinking maybe Himiko is still breathing, but Vogel brushes it off, saying it's just a pressure change. Right then, Lara accidentally steps on a trigger. Instantly, sharp spears shoot up from the ground, and a guard is killed on the spot. After that, they reach a massive pit filled with bones. Lara immediately recognizes it as the Chasm of Souls. To cross to the other side, they set up a ladder and make it across. On the other side, they find enormous sculptures carved in Himiko's likeness. But then a guard accidentally hits another trigger. Instantly, the round doors slam shut, and everyone is trapped inside. Then the floor below starts cracking open. Meanwhile, Lara notices a guard on the other side of the door peeking in. That's when she realizes the spot he's looking through is actually a keyhole. So they try using the prayer wheels on the wall like a key. Suddenly, the floor under Lara gives way. She barely grabs the door in time and hangs on, but the door still won't open. That's when she recalls a riddle from the entrance and figures out they need to combine the yellow and blue prayer wheels to create a green wheel, because green represented life. The second they hit the right combination, the door finally opens. Moving forward, they spot a crumbling pagoda. Inside, they find the tombs of Himiko's handmaidens, women who had sacrificed themselves to serve Himiko even in the afterlife. Finally, they reach Himiko's coffin. Richard keeps trying to stop Vogel from opening it, but Vogel still doesn't buy into any of the myths. The guards open the coffin, and inside they find Himiko's dead body. Suddenly, her eyes open, but a second later, her body body starts rapidly decomposing. That's when Lara notices that the paintings on the tomb walls don't show Himiko as a monster. Then she recalls a riddle that said Himiko must die to bring back life, and that she could spread death through a single touch. Lara realizes Himiko wasn't a monster at all. She had sacrificed herself so her deadly power would never spread into the world. So Lara tries to stop everyone from touching or moving Himiko's body, but nobody listens. The second they touch Himiko's body, it starts rising from the coffin. Seeing gears inside the coffin, Vogel thinks it's just some mechanical trick, but then the guard who touched Himiko's body watches his hands turn black. Slowly, his flesh starts rotting away. Now everyone understands. Himiko wasn't carrying magic, she was carrying a deadly virus. The guard starts screaming in agony and opens fire in a blind panic. Seeing things spiral, Vogel shoots him dead. Even after all of that, Vogel doesn't stop. He decides to cut off Himiko's finger and take it back to his employers. The second Vogel looks away, Lara grabs a pickaxe and goes after the last guard. At the same time, Richard picks up a dead guard's gun and shoots Vogel in the leg. When Lara runs for the exit, the last guard chases after her. Meanwhile, Vogel offers Richard a way off the island if he comes with him, but Richard flat out refuses because there's no way he's letting this disease leave the island. A little later, Vogel runs out of bullets. That's when the infected guard gets back up and attacks Richard. Vogel uses the opening to escape. Richard fights off the infected man's attacks and finally shoots him, but during the struggle, the man had already touched him. Richard realizes this and fast ties a tourniquet around his hand to slow the spread. Meanwhile, Lara hides inside one of the handmaiden's tombs, but as soon as she's inside, she hears bones cracking, which tips off the guard. Then both their weight causes the whole tomb to collapse, and Lara crashes into another room below. After the fall, Lara spots a trigger and steps on it. Instantly, massive spike traps shoot toward both her and the guard. Lara barely makes it out. The guard gets caught in the traps and is killed. Lara makes it back to Himiko's tomb, but Richard stops her from coming close because he's already infected. He tells Lara to go stop Vogel while he sets off the explosives around Himiko's tomb. Lara begs him to save himself. Richard tells her that after being stuck on this island all these years, getting to see Lara one more time is nothing short of a miracle. With tears in her eyes, Lara picks up the pickaxe and says her last goodbye to her father. Meanwhile, Vogel is trying to cross the chasm of souls. Lara leaps onto the ladder and scrambles up to cut him off. She kicks Vogel and sends him crashing back to the other side. But a second later, Vogel shoves her down. He grabs Lara by the throat, but Lara reverses it, wraps her legs around his neck, and squeezes. Vogel hammers punches into her side. Lara kicks him away hard. To stop him for good, Lara knocks the ladder into the chasm of souls so Vogel can't cross. But Vogel grabs the pickaxe and comes at her. He slams Lara down and pins her. Right then, Richard triggers the explosives he set around Himiko's tomb. The blast throws Vogel off for a second. Lara seizes that moment and kicks him hard. Then she grabs the bag holding Himiko's finger and shoves it straight into Vogel's mouth. Vogel is now infected. Lara sends him falling into the chasm of souls below. The whole place starts caving in. Lara grabs the pickaxe, takes a running leap, and tries to get to the other side. She drives the pickaxe into the ground and claws her way up. Then she sprints through the tunnel and gets out. A little later, Lu Ren spots her climbing out of a pit and pulls her to safety. That's when they see Trinity's helicopter. Lara and Lu Ren force the pilots at gunpoint to take them home. Back in London, Lara finally signs the papers that officially declare Richard dead. Anna tells her the entire company now falls on her shoulders, but instead of taking it on herself, Lara hands the responsibility over to Anna. When Lara goes through Croft Holdings records, she discovers that their company also owns a business called Patna, the same company that had been supplying Vogel's camp. With that, Lara goes back to Richard's secret office and starts digging through his research on Trinity. And that's when it hits her. She thinks back to how persistently Anna kept pushing her to inherit the company. Now Lara has a feeling that Anna might actually be a Trinity agent herself. Sometime later, Lara walks back into the pawn shop where she left her mother's necklace. She buys it back.